Hello and welcome back to Completely Mental. I'm your host Ben, and today I want to kind of talk about what got us here. I don't mean like, why are you surfing on YouTube? I mean, why am I making a video now? Like, why am I starting this channel in particular? Well, the answer is simple. I wanted to better myself. And I thought that there might be somebody else out there who was kind of in the same boat. And through talking with some friends, I think that, yeah, I'm not alone in this. I want to improve myself. So I have struggled with depression and anxiety ever since I was a kid. It all started when my mother passed away, and things just haven't been the same since. I'm not asking for pity by any means. My life has taken me exactly where it needs to be, and I feel very strongly that every little thing that's happened to me has led me to this point. I deserve every little bit of this life that I have, and nothing more, nothing less. I'm not asking for anything else out of it. Only thing I'm asking here is for you to lend an ear while I tell you a little bit about my mental health journey over this past year, because that's really when I've really moved like leaps and bounds from where I was the past couple of years. So the last couple of years, I went from being, just depressed, maybe a bit anxious, to having full-blown panic attacks almost daily. Anxiety was through the roof. Depression just had me on the floor. I was a shell of a human, and maybe shell isn't the right word. I think maybe like an electric cage, if you will. I was like an electric cage, an empty electric cage, but an electric cage, electrified cage of a human being. Like, I was empty, but I was ready to shock you if you really pushed on me. And so about that time that I got to that level, I found some great news that we were going to have a baby. And two things flooded through me all at once. Was, yes, we're going to have another one. And holy shit, what do I do now? I am not in the mindset. I'm not in good enough mental shape to bring a baby into this house. We have 2 kids already. We have 2 dogs. We had 3 cats. Had a bunch of fish I couldn't take care of. My fish tank's doing well now. If you guys are interested, I can post video or whatever of them. But regardless, I needed to change. And so I went to the internet and I looked up how to better my mental health. What are some of like the top tips for improving mental health? And probably the overarching winner as far as things that I could do personally to better my mental health was meditate. And so in the course of trying to figure out what kind of meditations do I want to do, because like, we've all seen the yogi gurus who's there and just om all day. I had that kind of like a hippy dippy outlook on meditation, so I was a bit hesitant. So I wanted to do a little bit of research. And in that research, I found my way into this book called Why Buddhism is True. And forgive me for not remembering the author's name, but the book itself really sold me on the idea of essentially like secular Buddhism, and just kind of learning how to live in peace and harmony with yourself, and how to kind of transcend your current state and become that person that you want to be. It was a lot of letting go of negativity and bad energy, and quite honestly, it was very nice. So around that time, I started another YouTube channel. It was Papa Bear at Home, which I'm not sure if I'm going to keep doing stuff with or not. I think I will, but my focus right now wants to be on this channel, because I really got started with YouTube to try to talk about mental health, and especially like men's and fathers' mental health. And that's what I want this channel to be about, which is why I'm talking about my issues right now. So with this, with my first channel, I decided I'm going to do a 30-day meditation challenge. And I only did that challenge, if you will, mostly because it drove traffic, and I could easily film a time lapse of me meditating, and I could put it up onto YouTube, and I could get it done pretty quickly. And I got a decent number of views. It helped me feel good about myself. But after those 30 days were up, I kept meditating for a while, but I don't know, it kind of lost its lure. Like, I feel like I gained what I needed to from it, and what that was really learning how to let go. How to focus on something that isn't what's bothering me at the time. That's not to say that there weren't meditations that acted very well for me to actually deep dive into my issues, because there are, and that type of meditation is still one that I do from time to time. But sitting there doing breathing exercises to calm down was very helpful for me with like my panic attacks and anxiety attacks. And I was able to kind of withdraw from those bad feelings and get all the good out of it. But for the life of me, I couldn't see me doing that for the rest of the time. So I kind of started exploring a little bit further out into like the different Eastern philosophies, not just Buddhism, but like different facets of Hinduism, which related but different, and Taoism, which again, similar but different. And they all kind of got to the same point where like you're learning how to let go, and you're learning how to control your mind. And so I like that idea of being able to control my mind. I wanted to run with that. What I had a hard time with these philosophies was it's really hard for me, an American white man, to identify and really harness the true thoughts and feelings and meanings of these Eastern philosophies without actually being essentially immersed in the culture. It's just me here in my basement office. I don't have a Buddhist temple down the road. I don't have a Hindu temple. There's nothing all that close to me. I looked, nothing all that close. And so I wanted to look for a Western philosophy that kind of aligned itself with the better parts of these Eastern philosophies that I found. And so in that, I stumbled across Stoicism. Now, when I first saw Stoicism as it come up across my page, like I'd studied philosophy very briefly in college. Because I had to take the class, not because like I chose to take the class. I had to take a philosophy class. In it, Stoicism was one that we talked about, but at the time, I was a terrible student, and honestly, I didn't want to sit and listen, and I didn't want to. I was bitter. I wasn't ready for the place I was at. But now, Stoicism, when I first came upon it as an adult, as a at the time 34-year-old man, what I found was, or the idea I had was that Stoicism was just going to keep me essentially from blowing up. Like it was going to keep me even keeled. It was going to teach me how to just take it on the chin and keep moving forward, which is what everybody thinks of when they hear the phrase stoic. Oh, he's so stoic. Oh, he's so emotionless. He's just so stoic. People have a hard time reading my facial expressions as it is. So I've been called stoic a number of times by people who didn't understand the philosophy at the time, and I just kind of was like, yeah, I'm Stoic. That's cool. But what I found when I got into reading about Stoicism, and really my biggest foray into it was through an author, Ryan Holiday, and his YouTube channel, the Daily Stoic. And I happened into Ryan Holiday and the Daily Stoic quite by accident, because I had gotten his book, the Daily Stoic, 366, I want to say, daily meditations from Stoicism. All I read on the cover was that there was daily meditations, and that's what I was looking for, was inspiration for meditations. What I got was a bunch of 2,000-year-old philosophy with a little bit of explanation at the bottom and a lot of time to think. And it turns out that's exactly what I needed. That book came into my possession, I wouldn't say by accident, because I fully meant to purchase that book. I just did not intend for it to be what it was. But I'm glad I did. So Ryan Holiday got me started down the line for Stoicism. And the way that that book is set up, there's a meditation for every single day of the year, and you can follow it like a calendar. And one of the things that he does great with that book was he breaks up like the overarching lessons from Stoicism into different sections of the book. So it doesn't skip around. It helps you to go one section at a time, really understand what's going on in that section, and really work on yourself. And then you move on to the next lessons from Stoicism for the next day. And that was really a treat, because I've also got ADHD, and I can't sit and focus on too many things for too long, but I can read a page a day and I can reflect on it for as long as I need to. And it was just lessons that would pop up from time to time throughout the day. But one of the first lessons that you learn is this thing called the dichotomy of control. You learn what you can and you cannot control. And that led me to other current Stoic philosophers, Stoic philosophy teachers. And perhaps my favorite at the time now is Massimo Pigliucci, who I will apologize to for possibly butchering your last name. I tried. I'm too white American to get a lot of these words correct. It's not going to happen all the time. So in discovering him, he has a TED Talk, and then he's also got a bunch of interviews talking to other people about how to be a Stoic, how modern Stoic philosophy can be applied to today. And he has a book aptly named How to Be a Stoic. And that's the first Stoic book that I've picked up and read cover to cover, and I will read it again cover to cover until some of those lessons sink in a little bit better. But what it did was give me a great outline of exercises and explanations and nice like anecdotal stories to really demonstrate how Stoicism can affect your life for the better. And he does it in a conversational way, and throughout the whole book he talks is kind of sort of to one of like the fathers of Stoicism. Obviously not literally, because that man died almost 2,000 years ago, and Massimo is alive and well today. What also I liked about Massimo was that he used to be a biologist. I also studied biology, and then he took a turn and had this juncture in life where it just wasn't right. And he fell into the world of philosophy. And that's kind of, we're making similar turns in life. I'm just following in the footsteps of a middle-aged Italian man. instead of a dead 2,000-year-old Stoic philosopher. Granted, same lessons. But what he likes to do is he likes to have these little conversations, little sidebars with Epictetus, who, by the way, that's not actually his name. It just means acquired. Epictetus or Epictetus or something along those lines. He was a slave, and he was a slave for like all of his life, but he still somehow ended up becoming an advisor to the emperor at the time. And like, if ever there was somebody who was like, could have easily been down and out, it was a slave. But that's neither here nor there. What Massimo does with him is, number one, he kind of highlights that Epictetus had a sense of humor in his explanations, and I'm always ready for a good joke, especially if I'm reading something that could potentially be dry, like a book on philosophy. But he does it in such like a charming way that it's almost like you're listening to a couple of friends talk, and it made the book just fly by. And there's tons of references in the back. Highly recommend it. If I can find a link to it, I'll post one down in the description, for both the Daily Stoic and for how to be a Stoic. So one of the things that I really liked with Stoicism that was introduced were their 4 virtues. These virtues were the things that we were constantly going to be working on and building it within ourselves. And 4 things is easy enough for me to remember, and it's easy enough for me to get on board with. But they're not, on paper, they look like 4 simple things. We have temperance, courage, justice, and wisdom. That doesn't seem like a terrible list. Hell, we've got more rules for my kids at breakfast time than these 4 virtues here. I can take those on. But they're our foundation. They're like the 4 walls of your house. They're what holds everything together and really sets the tone for you to better yourself. So the 4 virtues, temperance, we're all talking about moderation. And I feel like this one is difficult in like today's time, because everything that we see and everything that we're preached about is get out there and hustle so you can get more and more and more. And what you really need to learn is the idea of enough. There's an anecdote that's out there. I don't remember exactly which authors it was that made their way to this party. It was at the house of like a multimillionaire, and there was a couple of authors talking to each other. The one guy says to the other, "You imagine this guy made as much money today as you'll ever make in your lifetime." And the other author says, "Yes, this may be true, but I have something that he'll never have." And naturally the other author says, "Well, what's that?" And to which he gets the response, "Enough. I have enough. He will never have that." And I grew up in this house where whatever you wanted, you essentially ended up getting. So I never had enough. I never had a great idea of enough. And I've spent most of my adult life trying to get everything I can, because what I learned as a kid was like the more things you had, like the nicer things you had, like the better off you were, and people thought it was cool. But I gotta tell you, being an adult now, like number one, I know that I have too much stuff. I have more than enough. My kids will disagree, but they are 6 years old, 8 years old, and 4 months old. They don't have an idea of what's enough versus not enough. And so learning how to take things into moderation, which includes things like the amount that you eat in your diet, and I mean, like everything. Everything in moderation is essentially. So that's been a big lesson for me. It's been a big project for me, is to learn that I have enough and I don't need to keep getting more. Which is really hard, because one of my go-tos with depression when I'm feeling down is purchasing things. The second one is courage. So courage, this definition isn't going to rock anybody's boat. It's essentially learning how to step out of your comfort zone. It's doing the hard things even though you know it's going to be difficult. It's exactly what you think courage is. So I'm not going to really dive too far into it, because that itself isn't difficult. It applies to the other virtues in different ways, because all these are intertwined. But like the next one is justice, and we're not talking like biblical justice. It's not like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, or whatever. It's actually just doing the right thing, regardless of the consequences. That's their justice. And I really like that. Sure, I think people deserve to be punished for doing bad things. I'm not saying they don't. But this idea of justice is doing the right thing, even if it's the unpopular thing, has so many real world applications. It's not even funny. I mean, so doing the right thing, it can be like helping your neighbor when you see them having a difficult time. It can also be admitting when you're wrong. It can also be, finally, the kind of like ultimate virtue they have is wisdom. It's the knowing, it's learning, and it's listening. It's this idea that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and we also have 2 eyes and 1 mouth. We should watch more than we talk. We should listen more than we speak. It's all about acquiring the right knowledge and knowing when to apply the different virtues and how to balance the different virtues so that you may live a fulfilled and virtuous life. And so these were the things that really resonated with me with Stoicism. And so what I'm doing currently is I'm reading through a number of the great philosophers and their books and their writings. The biggest one that you'll come across is going to be Meditations from Marcus Aurelius, a former Roman emperor, one known as the last of the 5 good emperors of Rome. He's also known as the philosopher king or the philosopher emperor. He kept this journal that was like his reflection on the day for everything. And it goes into all like very personal anecdotal things. You'd probably be horrified to know that people are reading his diary to this day. But just, it's so approachable and it's so humble. It's so empathetic. You can feel how he feels, even though he's talking about life 2,000 years ago, and it's all still relevant. So that's Meditations. Next one we've got would be Letters from a Stoic from Seneca, and where Marcus Aurelius was writing to himself, Seneca really liked writing to others. He was a writer. He was an actor. He was like a theatrical person. He was taught about like Stoic philosophy as a young man, as a young boy. And then as he grew up, his father wanted him to get into politics. He got into politics. He became Nero's tutor, but Seneca got to be like his right-hand man. He got to be like his advisor. And I mean, he came from a fairly well-off family, but he was always a very good writer. So he, often on exile, he would write letters to people and advise on things like grief, on wealth, on power, religion, ways of life, whatever you needed. He's a great writer, and he speaks very clearly, and eloquently about the Stoic philosophies and how it applies to the lives of the people he's talking to. So that's Letters from a Stoic. The next big one would be Discourses from Epictetus. And the fact that Epictetus' teachings are around at all are lucky, and it's really only thanks to one of his students who actually sat and transcribed the lessons that Epictetus gave him, because Epictetus didn't keep anything written down. So, Discourses is the teachings that Epictetus gave to his pupils, to his students, out in the Stoa. I'm not even going to attempt it. Out in the Stoa, like in the plaza, almost like an open air, middle of the town classroom, if you will, so that anybody coming by can converse and get in on the conversation. So these lessons were vocalized to the students. One of them was smart enough to write them down. And it includes, like I said, a lot of a good sense of humor through Epictetus. But everything is just so down to earth. And then I'd probably say my final two I've already mentioned. I'd probably say my final two books to read right off the bat, or like off the rip. Before you read any of them, I would read How to Be a Stoic from Massimo Pigliucci. Again, sorry about the name pronunciation. I try. Read through that one first. It gives such a good backbone, such a good reference to what Stoicism really is, that I think everything else kind of falls into place as you read into it. And then the final one is The Daily Stoic, the 366 Meditations on Wisdom, Perseverance, and the Art of Living from Ryan Holiday. And, take a look at his webpage, take a look at his YouTube channel. He's constantly posting shorts of different quotes and their meanings to him, how he thinks it reflects to life today. And it's been nice to get his interpretation on things. What I don't want you to go into it thinking is like this is going to be some deep stuff, because it's not. It's real life stuff. Stoicism was made to be used by the common man, and I think it can do that for you. So that's what it's done for me. It's really opened my eyes. I am a much better person right now than I was 1 year ago. And I really look forward to my continued education and training and growing within this philosophy. So with that, I'm going to wrap things up. Thank you so much for listening. The fact that you've made it this far, you're a rock star. Please like the video, like the podcast wherever you've come across it. Leave a comment if there's anything that you would like to talk about, especially when it comes to like Stoicism and philosophy, but also different like mental health topics, especially when it relates to parenting or being a man today, just finding the balance of life, that kind of thing. So until next time, I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.